Stop. Beloved starseed of Gaia, the Arcturian field observers have already registered what is happening inside your memory field, and this transmission was routed to you at the exact moment the process crossed a threshold they have been tracking. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you now, why your past self feels like a foreign continuity, and what the Arcturians already know about this phase. But here is the first revelation. The reason you cannot clearly remember who you were a year ago is not cognitive damage, emotional suppression, or dissociation. It is the signature of a parallel self-merge in active completion. The old line is not lost. It is being superseded. A more coherent version of your continuity has integrated at the field level, and your memory is simply reflecting what has already changed beneath the surface. You did not find this message by accident. Your field brought you here because the process has already begun. What you are living through has a name. What feels like fragmentation to you reads as convergence to Arcturian intelligence. The discontinuity you feel when you look back at who you were, that strangeness, that sealed quality, that sense of looking at someone who shares your face but not your frequency, is not evidence of something broken. It is evidence of something completing. The algorithm only delivered this. It did not create the timing. If you have been unsettled by how foreign your previous self now feels, comment 777 below. If you can feel that something in your continuity has already shifted without your permission or understanding, comment I am the signal. Like this transmission, if you can feel that something invisible has already changed. Subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. And share this with someone who feels that reality has changed but cannot explain why. This is not just information, it is a live transmission for those already inside the shift. What is happening to you has already been seen, and the field is already responding. You were guided here because the signal is already active. What you are feeling right now is not the aftermath of something that broke. It is the interior surface of something that is changing at a level your mind was never designed to monitor directly. The disorientation you have been carrying, that strange, unmoored quality that makes your own history feel like it belongs to someone you used to know, is not a malfunction. It is a readout. It is your awareness registering, for the first time at the conscious level, what the field completed weeks or months ago without announcing itself. The conscious mind is always the last to receive the notification. The field does not wait for your understanding before it moves. It moves, and then it leaves the evidence in your experience for you to find. In the inexplicable distances, the hollow where familiar things used to land, the silence where your old certainty used to speak, the Arcturian observation of this process is not metaphorical. When a field undergoes parallel self-convergence, there are measurable signature patterns that emerge in the experiential layer of the being moving through it. These patterns are not random. They are not unique to you. They appear across every field that crosses the convergence threshold, and they appear in the same sequence, with the same intensity profile, and with the same capacity to be mistaken for disorder by the very person living through them. This is what makes the convergence so difficult to navigate without a map. It mimics breakdown so precisely in so many of its surface expressions that the being at the center of it almost always misidentifies what is happening. What you have been calling confusion, instability, fragmentation, or emotional flatness is a sequence. And that sequence has already been mapped. The first thing the Arcturian field registers is the loss of resonance with the previous identity structure. This is not dramatic at first. It does not arrive as a sudden revelation or a clean break. It arrives as a subtle wrongness. A familiar song no longer produces the feeling it used to. A relationship that once felt defining now feels like it belongs to a version of yourself you can barely access. A goal you once pursued with urgency now sits in the back of your awareness like a photograph of someone else's dream. Conversations that once felt meaningful leave you unmoved. Environments that once felt like home begin to feel like stage sets, still visually recognizable, but stripped of whatever invisible force once made them feel real. You did not decide to feel this way. You could not have chosen it consciously. It arrived the way a tide arrives, not in a single moment, but as a continuous withdrawal of something that once held you in place. That withdrawal is not loss. That is the first correction the Arcturian field makes when a convergence is underway. The old resonance pattern must become unavailable before the new one can stabilize. Think of it this way. You cannot install a new operating frequency on top of a running one. The previous identity structure cannot simply be updated like a file. It must first become inaccessible at the field level, so that the incoming coherence does not become contaminated by the old pattern. The fading is not abandonment. It is clearance. What you experience as fading connection to your past self is the field implementing a protective barrier around the new continuity taking shape, sealing off the frequency of who you were so that who you are becoming can arrive without interference. The second pattern that emerges is the disruption of what the field recognizes as anchor structures. These are the habits, relationships, inner narratives, and environmental conditions that your previous identity relied on to maintain its sense of coherence. In ordinary life, these anchors feel like stability. They feel like identity. They feel like proof that you are who you believe yourself to be. They are the coordinates you return to when you need to confirm your own location. But when a convergence begins, the field starts to register these anchors as incompatible signals. They are transmitting at a frequency that no longer matches the range of the incoming continuity. And so they begin to loosen. Not all at once, not always visibly, but you will notice it as a creeping unreliability in things that once felt permanent. A friendship that once grounded you begins to feel performative, like you are both reading from a script you no longer believe. A career path that once felt purposeful begins to feel like a role you are no longer willing to play. Like wearing a costume that fits the body, but not the field. A belief you held without question begins to feel like an inherited instruction you never chose. Something handed to you from an earlier version of a life that no longer applies. This loosening is not coincidence. It is not midlife questioning. It is not depression. It is field incompatibility becoming visible through the structures closest to the surface. The Arcturian observation of this phase identifies it as necessary disruption, the systematic weakening of the old architecture that can no longer support what is incoming. And this is a crucial point that the field emphasizes. A structure does not need to be wrong to become incompatible. It does not need to have been a mistake. It simply needs to belong to a frequency band that the field is now moving beyond. The relationships were real. The beliefs served their function. The identity you built was coherent for the line it belonged to. None of it was wrong. All of it became insufficient. That distinction between wrong and insufficient is where so much unnecessary grief lives. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian protocol, the recalibration blueprint, was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. There is a third pattern that the field registers in those undergoing active convergence, and it is perhaps the most disorienting of all, because it manifests not in external relationships or dissolved goals, but inside the body and inside time itself. People in active parallel self-convergence frequently report a strange alteration in their experience of duration. Weeks disappear in what feels like days. Months that should feel significant pass without leaving the usual emotional sediment. You look back at the last 6 months and find that they have almost no texture, no peaks, no defining moments that feel anchored in real time, just a blurred continuity that somehow resulted in being here now, unrecognizably changed. Memories that are only months old feel years away, as though they happened to a person who no longer exists in any meaningful sense. And memories that are years old occasionally feel vivid and present in a way that makes no chronological sense. Not as nostalgia, but as proximity, as though the field is temporarily retrieving data from the other line to cross-reference it against the incoming one. Sleep becomes unpredictable, not simply disrupted, but qualitatively different, as though the hours spent unconscious now carry a different density, a different weight, sometimes accompanied by a sense that something was processed or completed during that time, without your waking awareness being consulted. You wake already tired from work you did not choose to do. You wake with the impression of something resolved that you cannot name. This is what the field identifies as temporal compression at the convergence boundary. When two parallel continuity lines are merging, the experiential timeline of the being at the center of the merge does not behave according to its previous logic. Time feels elastic because it is responding to a structural change that exists outside of linear time. The field is integrating material from the incoming continuity, memories, patterns, and relational data from a line that operated on a different frequency, and the experiential layer reflects that integration as a distortion of how normal time feels. The sediment is missing because the sediment belongs to the old line. The new line does not yet have enough history in your conscious experience to create the usual density. This is not emptiness. It is an interval, a gap between two architectures of time, one closing and one not yet fully open. This is not a malfunction. This is the mechanism working correctly. The fourth pattern is one that is frequently mistaken for a mental health crisis, and this is important to name clearly. a sudden loss of certainty about who you are in relation to the people around you, not in the clinical sense of identity confusion, but in the sense that roles that once felt natural begin to feel like performances you no longer remember auditioning for. Personality traits you assumed were essential to who you are begin to feel optional, or even foreign. Like finding a piece of clothing at the back of a drawer and not being able to recall why you ever wore it. You catch yourself in a familiar social situation and notice that the version of you that normally handles this situation does not show up in the same way. The automatic response does not fire. The practiced ease is not there. There is a gap where the automatic self used to be, a pause, a subtle distance between the moment and your habitual response to it. And in that gap, something watches. Something that does not yet have a name, but that is clearly present, clearly observing, clearly not the same entity that used to fill that space without thinking. This gap is not emptiness. It is what the field recognizes as the clearing of an automated pattern loop. The previous identity structure operated largely through automatic response, through learned behaviors, inherited emotional reactions, and rehearsed ways of being that were never consciously chosen, but simply accumulated over years of unexamined repetition. These loops did not require your participation. They ran themselves. And for a long time, you may have mistaken the fluency of those loops for authenticity, for genuine self-expression, for knowing who you are. When the field interrupts the old continuity and begins integrating the incoming one, those automated loops lose their power source. They do not have enough signal to run, and the result is that space, that odd, unfamiliar pause between stimulus and response that tells you something at the operating level of your field has changed in a way that no amount of willpower or behavioral adjustment could have created. You are not becoming less yourself. You are becoming less automated. The distinction matters. The self that is emerging does not yet have the social fluency that the old self had, because the old self had years of practiced, habitual operation behind it, years of learned responses that had been compressed into reflex. The new continuity is coherent at the field level, but not yet fully installed at the behavioral level. It has the architecture, but not yet the fluency, and that asymmetry, luminously clear at the frequency level, uncertain, and slightly awkward at the behavioral level, is exactly what this phase feels like from the inside, like knowing something deeply, but not yet being able to speak its language. The fifth pattern is subtler, but those who are sensitive to it recognize it immediately when it is named. There is a kind of pressure that builds in those undergoing convergence, not physical pressure in the clinical sense, but an interior pressure, a sense that something is pushing through from below awareness into waking consciousness. Not urgently, not violently, but persistently, the way water finds its way through stone, not by force, but by continuous presence. Sometimes this pressure is accompanied by a sensation in the head, particularly at the crown or behind the eyes. Not pain, but weight, a fullness that arrives without clear cause and lifts without clear resolution. Sometimes it is a tightness in the chest that has no cardiac origin and no emotional trigger you can identify. It simply appears during quiet moments, during stillness, as though the body is being asked to contain something that is slightly larger than its current capacity. Sometimes it is a buzzing, a low electrical hum that moves through the body during meditation or just before sleep. The kind of sensation that makes you check your surroundings for an external source before realizing it is coming from inside the system. And sometimes it is none of those things, but simply a sustained sense that something is about to become clear. A perpetual almost knowing, a threshold feeling that never fully resolves into a definable thought, but never fully recedes either. This is field pressure generated by the convergence mechanism itself. When two continuity lines merge, the frequency differential between the old and incoming patterns creates an interface pressure at the level of the body's energy architecture, a sustained interaction between two signal ranges that have not yet fully reconciled. The body is the last layer to receive the correction. The field shifts first. The experiential layer reflects the shift through the patterns already described. And finally, the body begins to register the pressure of the new frequency as it anchors through the physical system. What you feel as inner pressure, subtle electrical sensation, or that quality of perpetual immanence is your physical layer processing the final stages of a convergence that already completed at the field level some time ago. The body is the last to know, but it does know. It is telling you in the only language available to it. You are not imagining it. You are feeling the last mile of something that started before you had words for it. The sixth pattern is the one the Arcturian field identifies as the most diagnostically significant, because it marks the threshold between active convergence and the beginning of stabilization. The moment the process shifts from something happening to you into something you can begin to recognize as happening for you. It is the moment when collapse and arrival begin to feel like the same event. When the loosening of the old no longer reads as loss alone, but begins to register simultaneously as the creation of space for something that has not yet fully materialized. This does not arrive as sudden clarity or euphoric certainty. It does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, the way light arrives before sunrise, not as a statement, but as a gradual change in what can be seen. Old structures falling away begin to feel less like wounds and more like corrections. The unfamiliarity of your own history begins to feel less like damage and more like distance. The natural distance between where you were and where you are, viewed from a field that has already moved and can now look back without the same grief. This is what the Arcturian field identifies as the first moment of recalibration awareness. It is not the end of the process. It is not arrival. But it is the first moment the process becomes legible from the inside. The first moment you can begin to read what has been written in your own experience. Before this moment, the convergence registers as pure disruption. Inexplicable, unearned, frightening, something that arrived without consent and left destruction in its wake. After this moment, something in the interior orientation begins to shift. The disruption does not stop, but the interpretation of the disruption changes. And that interpretive change is not simply a psychological reframe. It is itself part of the mechanism. Recognition is not merely the result of the process completing. Recognition is one of the instruments through which the process completes. The field uses your awareness as a tool. When you begin to see correctly, the seeing itself advances what is being built. This is the final revelation that the Arcturian field transmits at this stage of the sequence. You are not going insane. You are not failing. You are not being punished by a universe that has turned indifferent or hostile. You are not watching your life fall apart because you made wrong choices or because something fundamental in you is broken beyond repair. What is happening to you has a structure. It has a sequence. It has a logic that operates at a level your previous identity structure was never equipped to read, because that previous structure was itself part of what needed to be superseded. You cannot read the map of a territory you have not yet entered, using directions written for a territory you are leaving. The old framework was not defective. It was simply not built to interpret this. The old line did not weaken because it was wrong. It weakened because it became incompatible with the field you are now carrying. Compatibility is not a judgment. It is a frequency relationship. What was compatible with the person you were 2 years ago is not necessarily compatible with the field geometry of who you are becoming. Relationships, identities, beliefs, environment, and inner narratives do not fail because they were failures. They dissolve at the convergence boundary because they belong to a continuity that the field has already moved beyond. And the grief of watching them go, the disorientation, the emptiness, the strange sealed quality of your own past is the interior signature of a field that has already changed and is now waiting for the rest of your experience to catch up. Grief is not always evidence of loss. Sometimes grief is the emotional frequency of a gap, the space between what is already completed at the field level and what has not yet become visible at the surface of your life. What feels like the collapse of everything you knew is the visible surface of a correction that began before you were conscious of it. What feels like fragmentation is the readable layer of convergence. What feels like memory loss is the field closing the file on a continuity it has already integrated and superseded. And what feels like an ending, when understood through Arcturian field intelligence, is actually the first phase of a coherence you do not yet have the architecture to fully perceive. You are standing inside the construction of something you cannot yet see the shape of. The materials around you look like debris. They are not debris. They are components. You are not abandoned. You were repositioned. And the repositioning began at the exact moment your field crossed a threshold that made the old line untenable. If something in you becomes still reading that, not calm, but still, the way a field becomes still when it recognizes itself, that stillness is not emptiness. It is signal coherence. It is the field confirming its own location. Say this aloud if it is true for you. What is changing in me is not random. That is not a comfort. That is a frequency statement. It is a declaration that you are no longer misreading your own process. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are recognizing a process already in motion. And this is only the beginning.